Okay, welcome. So now over to typography. We are going to learn every basic things you need to know about the typography, the text element itself. Okay, not typography per se, but the text element in relativity to the typography styling for website design. So now we are going to use two instances for this. One of which is the heading text and the second is the body text. The heading text is the element that actually cascades from H1 to H6. H1 means heading 1 to heading 6. H1 represents the size and the responsibility of a text. I'm going to explain that in a little while. So let's toss in a heading text before we proceed. And we're also going to toss in a body text, which are the two basic text elements we are going to use. So now we have the heading text and we have the body text. Very important. These are the two text elements you need to build anything that have to do with typography in your website. Okay. Now the first one is the heading text. Now when you look over to the left corner of your website, you see what we call tag and we have here H1. Now do you notice sometime in Google indexing, okay, let me not use that big language. When you search a word or you search a website on Google, they bring you the website name and then bring you options to see the website service, about us, contact us, and all of that. Those are the function of the H2. Okay, H1 text are the highest authority of text in a website, which means Google prioritize them as the only text that should be shown before the rest of them. H1 are usually used for the website domain name, okay, right in from WordPress itself. So it is not advisable you use the H1 tag on any of your text. Now, let's go back to this part. Okay, you see this text over here? Very simple. You see this text over here? This is not the H1. This could be as big as the H1. Now let's get back here again. Now when we select H2, it's going to be smaller than H1. When you select H3, it's smaller than H2. When we select H4, it's smaller than H3, and so on and so forth. Now we select H4, but we can get back to advanced, get to typography, and we can increase the font size from here. Let's say we make it 77. So it's now having the size even greater than H1 size. Now look what this means. This simply means that you can use a H6 and still make it as large as a H1. You can even use the body text of in a website and still make it as large as a heading text. That doesn't matter, okay? What matters is what you are using the text for. Now, if you are using it for services, let's take for instance, for services like so, okay? Now, maybe if you have something like about us, contact us, and all of these from here, okay? You can use the H2 for those. H2 are used for pages. When you want to link someone to page or you have a particular word that links to another page, you can use H2. H3 is used when you want to actually talk about kind of stuff like this, the value we provide, something like this. That's when you use H3. Okay, and we keep going down. H4 can be used for this menu elements are automatic. They are automatically H1. The link to your website are automatically H1 because when you get to search for a website, let's search for a website. Let me show you what we are talking about from here. So let's search for Starline Nigeria Limited. Okay, so now we have Starline Nigeria Limited. Now we have here about us, contact us, and our shop. These ones are H2. I used H2 for this website. We actually made this website for this company. I used H2 for this particular one. Now, why is perfume appearing? Because when I was building the website, I have not understand the concept of H tags. Okay. So this particular one is a category, okay? So I used H2 for the category, mistaking H2 for the category. That's why you see it populate here. Usually H2 is supposed to be for about us, contact us, and our shop. H1, you see it for Starline Nigeria Limited, which is the first thing that appears before the rest of the things. Now, when you are creating a website, you get to the point where you write the detail about the website. Look very closely here. Let me show you what that means. When we hover over this, you're going to see Cater Studios. We see here see their website / Cater Studios. Look at Bobby Media. You see Bobby Media social media marketing and management. Where is this extracted from? I'm going to teach you all of that. This actually are information you put to actually support the title of the domain or the URL of the website. Like as you can see from here, Starline Nigeria Limited is the title that supports the website link itself before we can start getting into the H2. So these are H1, then we get to H2. The category should actually be the H3 and H4. You can place in anyone from there. But the most important one you should note is do not use H1. If you're using for services, about us, stuff like that, a website like this, that you have stuff like this, okay? Our services, we have social media strategy, content creation. This one should be H2 because these are the things you want to show in index in Google so that people click on it, they get directly to this particular area of the website. Okay, we are going to talk about that in the future when we talk about the hashtag in full. But I'm just showing you a little bit of instances. So whenever you're using the bold text, make sure you start from H3. When you select, go to primary, go to tag and make it H3. Then you can start increasing the size. If you don't do it like so, Google index, Google SEO won't populate your website or your designed website accurately. You have issues having websites being populated in a wired way. So now we have the H3 selected. We can proceed with the rest of these. Are just basic things you need to do. Leave H1. Do not make sure you change once you drop a text. Make sure it's not H1. You can start from H2 if it's about services. Then H3 if the image element, if the text element is talking about other things that are not very vital to the website. So now we are done with that. Let's proceed with the rest of the settings. Now, when we get to typography, there are basic things we can do from here. Let's reduce our size. Let's change our detail a little. Okay, double click. Fine. So now when we get to advanced, we have some options. Click on advanced and you click on typography. This is where you change all settings. Now here is the font family. I will advise you usually always use Poppins. Okay, Poppins is my best font. Select Poppins. You can select some other fonts from here. Here's where you select some other fonts that you want to actually play around with. Okay, you can also add your custom font. We are going to talk about that in the future too. So we keep it at default, or we keep it at Poppins, text Poppins, and we are good. So that is how to select the font family. Select from here, font family, or the font style you want. Here is where you increase or decrease the size of the font you want. Remember, you can also do this, change all this with the classes so that you can apply them on other, or when you style it, you can click option, copy style, and paste in another text element. That is about the typography, text, and size. Here you can change the color of the text to whatever color you want. Now, very important, if you are placing a text on a bright background like this, stay away from bright colors like this or bright colors like this. Stay away from bright colors like this. Any color that is bright, stay away from it. This is very important. Use colors that have lower contrast. Don't use a very high contrast color. Okay? Like yellow is a very high contrast. It's not going to work. I hope you see how this is looking in your eyes. You can't even read this clearly. So even if you must use yellow, or yellow is the brand color for the brand, and they insist you use it on their text, you can use the darker version of that particular yellow, and things are still going to work perfectly fine, as you can see from here. Okay, this is even lemon, not even yellow. Okay, so now make sure whenever you are playing around with a white background, use a dark text color. Okay, but whenever we are playing around, let's change this background to black. Okay, make sure you use a bright color. This is where we use a high contrast color. So we go very, very sharp, is going to work. We go very, very sharp, is going to work. Very, very sharp is going to work. I hope you get that very clearly. So don't make the mistake. Don't do that around. Don't do that as an assignment I give. Don't even try it anywhere close to my submissions. I will cancel it. Okay, make sure whenever you are playing around with colors, play around with colors that are dark. As you can see, this one shines better than the one we used on the dark background because it's more visible on a bright background than dark background. This is another important thing you need to note about your typography. Make sure You put that into consideration. That is for the color. And the font size, no, we select on this. Again, go to advanced. Now you can change the color and all those basic things from here in the primary area. But I like us to do that from typography. You can do it better from here. Okay, because here you have more option than you have from the other place. So now the font width, you can increase the font width or reduce it to whatever font width you want. You see, it's very thin now. We can increase it a little more. Okay, it's very thick now. So I like to keep it on a basic 500. It's okay. You can play around with what you want. Now, one thing to note is the more you increase your text, okay, the lesser you want the thickness to be. Very important. And the less you decrease your text, let's make it 50. The more you want the text to be thick. For visibility, I hope you understand that. Now, the thickness we have in this text is the same thickness we have when the text was 200 and on 400 thickness. Just watch closely. Even this one is the 400 is even larger than 600 when the text is 50 on size. It's larger than 600. Look at the thickness. I hope you get the point. So the smaller the text, the thicker you should make the width. The larger the text, the thinner you should make the width. But don't make it too thinner that people can't even understand. Unless the aesthetics of the concept of the website itself is built around thin text. Okay, maybe the logo concept is very thin and sleeky and all of that. So that is another thing to note from there. One other important thing before we get to text alignment, we can't learn alignment without having a double check. So to have a double check, we go to text and we are going to copy this text. Copy and we space and we paste. Space and we paste. Okay. What size we have from here? Let's go over to size and spacing. And we want the width to be on 50%. Let's give it a 50% so we can clamp this thing together. Now, you see what I just did there? When you're typing something, the text is getting too longer. You want to make it a little bit shorter. Select, go to advanced, go to size and spacing, and go over to this place called width. Make sure you switch this to percentage and give it a percentage width that is going to match what you need. Okay, so we can use it interchangeable, not that you created a text, you can do everything from the typography area. You can also need to get back to the spacing area to style or spice out things. That's number one. Number two is that as we have done that, that is not all. It doesn't mean that is the size is going to be. If we select on typography and decrease the size of the text to 20, you will see that this element, the click, will cascade and move over to the first line. Look what happens. Even everything moved over. Everything moved over. Everything moved over. So we make it 40 and let's reduce it and let me show you what I mean. You see what I mean? Okay, you see what I mean? The more you increase it, the more it's going to take up more space because of what? It's constrained to take only 50%. So anything you are doing, whether you are increasing or decreasing, is going to be proportional or proportionate to the size we have actually given that particular width. Whether we are giving the width to the container guiding the text element or we are giving the width to the text element. By the way, you can wrap this with a div and control the size with a div. We are going to come to that when we start our practices. Okay, but you understand what I mean. It's as simple as that. Okay, so we learned about the thickness of the text. The more larger the text, the thinner it should be. The more smaller the, just like difference from the border radius, the more larger the element, the more border radius you need. The more smaller the element, the less border radius. So the two rules are like opposite to each other, but for different elements. Okay, now we have understand that the more you increase the text or the more text you add, the more stuffs will stack. It's very important to note. Okay, now we are done with that. Let's go to advanced typography, and here in alignment we can now say go to the left. You see how it is aligned? Stay in the center and go to the right. Now justify, I will not advise you to use this. I'm going to talk about this when we come to the body text. Okay, so we move it to the left if we are aligning all elements to the left. Now example of that is this. You see it? All elements we have here is left aligned. So you must have to make everything aligned to the left. I think this one is center aligned. As you can see from here, is center aligned for this one. That is how these elements are. Everything is centered aligned. Let's see if we can see another one. This is center aligned too. And the same thing, center align, center align. So you use center alignment for elements that are, maybe you have a particular section that have more than 3 elements and you want the stuffs to look accurate from the center. That's number 1. Number 2, you can also use center alignment for mobile responsiveness when we get to that. But there's no rule whether using left align or right align. But one thing I want to point very clearly is this. If your heading text, the text that is guiding everything, is center aligned, the elements inside taking up this part should be center aligned too. Unless in cases like this. Cases like this are actually constrained out of rule. I am doing stuff out of bound. But let me show you an instance of what I mean. You see it? This is center aligned and elements are center aligned. You can only play around with element like this when you are actually used to alignment. There are many things that might complicate your work if you try to do it like I do it. Usually this text is supposed to be to the left side. If it's in the left side, it is still okay. It's not bad. As it is in the center, all these elements should be centered. But why I didn't center is because I have my button or my logo or the brand logo to the left. If I center this element and put the brand logo to the center, it's not going to look nice to the eyes. So there are some kind of conditions that can limit the rules, that can cancel the rules and make it easy for you to actually play around and override the rules. I hope you get that very clearly. The same applies to the rest of the things. There are no big deal. So play around with stuffs and make sure they look exactly like how you want it. I will always be here to guide you, to make you understand which one is proper to use in what cases and thereabout. So that is left about alignment. Now, line height is very important. If we come here and we give it a line height of 2, you see how we space this element from this other one. Then we give it a line height of 1. It spaces it. Let's type that. 1. It gives it. We can give it a line height of 1.2. Can give it a line height of 1.5. Can give it a line height of 1.6. By default, the line height is 1.5. But I like to go with line height of 1.0. Okay. But now look very closely. When we increase the size of this font to 200, the line height stays the same. But the problem, let's just make this 100. This stacking and causing problems. The line height stays the same. We can now increase this line height to 2 and see how it stacks. The line height it is giving us here is greater than the line height that we have when this size was 40. Look at the line height. It's smaller now. So note that very clearly. Not that you use the line height of 2 in this one, it should work on this one. No. Use stuffs according to your site. Look at the work. Look at the work. You are the creative here. You are the one making the website. You are the one creating this thing. So you have to create it the way that you like it. It's not actually by rules. It's not actually because someone did it. It's not actually because this is how you did it before. No. And fonts can affect the size of elements. For instance, we selected this font and the size, everything is the same. We are not changing anything. And we go to this font and we change this font to a different font. Let's change it to Akira. Look at how this font is going to. The same size, the same thickness, the same everything. We change it to Akira. You see, the font is now larger. So now, which means it doesn't mean that I use the size of 40 for my heading text and I'm going to use the size of 40 on all website I'm building heading text. No. The size of 40 works for Poppins, or it can work for a particular font, but might not work for another font. We select this and we give a different, let's say we give for glitz. Let's see what happens there. You see, it reduces everything. Look, it's now one line because everything is reduced. We go back to default. Poppins is now 2 lines. So you should be careful about that. Very, very careful about the sizes you give to your font, and the kind of font you select actually affects the size of your font. Okay? So now let's move ahead. The letter spacing means the space we want to give between the letter. You see it? Do you understand that one? Did you? Very good. So if we give it 4, we are spacing each letter from each other. It's not word spacing. Word spacing is different from letter spacing. Letter spacing, we are spacing each letter from the other. Okay? So I like to leave this at 0. or as normal. Now, text decoration is a none. If we click on underline, we are placing an underline. Overline, we are placing an overline. Strike through, we are placing a strike through. Normal and italic, and you understand the rest of that. You can use as multiple as you want, as many as you want. You can use underline and strike through at the same time. Oh, you can't even use those two at the same time. Let's see if you can use strike through and underline. No, you can't. So we can only use one of these three and one of these two at the same time. So we can use underline or overline, and we can use italic. You get the point. So we are done with that. Let's clear out that. Now, text decoration. We can leave this at capital. Capital means we want the first initial of every word. First initial means the first letter of every word. Like we have double, the first letter is D. We have click, the first letter is C. We have double, the first letter is D. With initial, that is what we call capitalization. Capitalization means first letter in every word should be capital. Uppercase means everything inside of it should be capital, whether you used a lowercase in typing it out or not. I hope you get that very clearly. Now, lowercase means everything should be small letter. Both the first letter, second letter, all of them should be small letters. Okay? Now, I like to keep it at none so that I control my letter the way I want it from over there. Font smoothing, I don't think this is important. Just leave this as it is. So these are the basic things you need to learn about typography. Okay? These basic things you need to learn about typography. Now let's learn some other things outside just typography. Let's learn how to style a text. Okay? Okay, we actually have learned how to style a text. You know what to do with the state, how to hover over it and all of that if you want to play around with that. And by the way, you can click option and wrap a text with a link. Okay, make it a link so that somebody click on it. You can even convert a text to a button. By selecting on the text, go to background. You select and give it a background color. Okay, automatically this is a button. You just select on the text color is too vibrant right now. Select on typography, go to typography and change the color. Of course, change the color to white so you can match the background it's with. This red is too vibrant, even if you want to use red, not that particular red. So go low, this is how to select color. Go low from this part, okay? Go low from this part and we can get a particular red that also actually complements the white color we have over here. So we can click option and wrap with a link. And when we wrap it with a link, automatically this is a link. Somebody can click on it and it take them to somewhere. We are going to talk about link in the later part of this module. So now we are done with that. Let's move over to the next thing. Okay. The next thing is a little more advanced styling for the text or the typography. So we go to typography, we switch the text again to the color we had before. Now, what if we want this click to be white color, but double and double to be blue color? What do we do? That's where we are spanning coming. What you need to do is to click on the text, double click on the text. Okay, you will see this option at the top side now. They will appear automatically. When you double click, it appears. Click and select on the text you want to span. Spanning means I want to select this text and make it different, even though it still belongs to this particular line of text. You understand that? Usually to change the text color, you have to create the text, create another text. You know, doing that, your work is not going to be responsive. If you try to make them responsive, it's not going to be. But to make it as simple as this, select, double click on it, select the text, then click on this one called span. Okay? Wrap with a span component. Click on that and automatically it is to be wrapped with a span component. Now we can change the text color to whatever color we want. We can even change the text style to be a different text, while the others will retain whatever they are. I don't like this color of red. So fine. You see it, you can style things the way you want. I think I have a particular website we made, which we actually have that particular concept, academy.caterstudios.com. Let me show you where that is actually used or where it shines very well. Let's go to courses. Many of you don't know we have this website. Go to academy.caterstudios.com. You are going to see the full documentation. This is the full documentation website. So you see where we use it. This text alone have its own difference and this other text have its own difference. But if we are actually going to create this text separate, create this one separate on different breakpoints, this is going to scatter everywhere. But since we are doing it with span, everything is going to align according as we want it to be. Okay, you can go back, check out this to read our full documentation. So it's easier for you to understand what is going on here. So guys, that is it about spanning. You can span a text, do it the way you want, style it the way you want, put whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. You can even give it a styling that other ones don't have. You can even convert it to a link so that people can actually click on it and it will lead them somewhere. Okay, so this is basic things you need to know about the heading text. Let's get to the body text. Select on the body text and we are going to duplicate this. Click option, copy, and we paste. Okay, now we can do the same thing we did in the previous one. Select and go over to size and spacing. The width size, we can still make it percentage. We make it 50% width and we are good to go. Next thing, we go to typography again. Now we can style out things. Leave it at Poppins as we have, or Sora. I like the font Sora. If we have it here, we have Sora over here. So now we have the font size. Your font size on body text should be within 16 to 18 pixels. Make sure your font size is not beyond that. 15 to 18 pixel body text. Let me repeat again. Your body text, your body text size should be within 15 to 18% for legibility and consistency. So we are going to use 15 and see how 15 is going to look. This is how 15 looks. Let's increase this to 16. Okay, let's leave it at 15 and we switch this to Poppins. Look at how the font is going to be larger. Okay, it's even maintaining the same thing. So different font, like I said before, can affect your styling. If we select a particular font size, you know what I'm talking about. So we use Poppins as normal. 15 is not as large as we want. You know, some clients might want their text to be as bold as, so you can just go with 18. 18 is okay. I think 19 is too much, no? So 18 is okay. One thing again you can do is the font width. We can make it 500 to make it a little bolder, but keep it at 400. Now the text color, make sure it is not vibrant black. Make sure it's not dark black, okay? So we can put it along this particular axis, a little bit of gray. Why? Is because it is a lower hierarchy. The body text is a lower hierarchy and should be treated like so. If you give the body text a heavy color, it's going to compete with the heading text. Let me show you an example of that. As you can see from here, we have the heading text from here, Bobby Media. If we made this social media, blah, 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 black color is going to compete with this one and the design concept is not going to look nice. Most of these things I'm going to show you guys in the future. You're going to understand why it works that way. Okay, we are going to deal with all of this. So the body text, you see it here, see the gray color and the heading text very dark. See the cases here. I wonder why this wasn't as dark as gray as, but it's still gray. It's not as dark as this particular one. And this same thing, gray, not as dark as this particular one. The same applies to these ones, as you can see from there, not as dark as that particular one. Okay, so when you're playing around and also on a black background, okay, when we select on this, go to advanced background and we switch this to black background, the text color shouldn't be vibrant white. Okay, we shouldn't make the text color vibrant white. No, we go to typography to do that. So we shouldn't make the text color vibrant white. So it should be gray, a little more gray like so. Okay, something like this. We have an instance of that. Let's go over, let's scroll down to this part of the website where we see cases like that. See it here? We have gray over here. Let me zoom closely so you can see the difference between it and the white one. Okay, we have gray over here. We have white from the bottom. When you hover, it becomes gray. So there's a lot of things you guys, we are going to learn together. So you understand, you see you have gray, we have bright white for the body text, and we have, I'm going to teach you guys why these things are very important and why they are okay to work that way. Okay, so that is basically everything you need to know about your typography. The body text, you see as we change to white background, we still need to go back here and make it a little bit of darker gray to make everything stack or stand better. When we start typing our elements, you know, you can go to advanced, still go to typography, alignment, you can left align, right align. We have talked about all of this. It's still the same thing, line height, line spacing, and all of that. You can just play around with the rest of the things. But I suggest you leave the text style from here as it is, except you want to make some capital letter. But for the line height and line letter spacing, leave it, except you are using a template someone built or template one of us built and you don't like the height they used there, then you can switch it to whatever you want. So that is everything you need to know about our typography, styling, and our typography usage. You can actually delete a span if you don't want a span, and you continue with what you're doing. Okay? See you in the next one.